shirt.
San Diego Athletics Live. Oh, we got another one just because of the shirt on it. Yeah. We took a little bit of a hiatus because someone here decided to make it official.
Congratulations, sir.
Woo.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was phenomenal. Yeah. We got drunk in a pool for 6 days, and then we got married, and that was pretty amazing. It's a day you can't really plan for.
No, never.
You're there. She's pretty awesome. She looked really, really good in her dress, and it was pretty much a perfect day.
It was beautiful in the pictures.
It was rad.
Was there little tears?
Anders cried.
I am 100%. On a national level, we should understand that I have the softest family in the world. Like, you just think about something emotional going on in my family, waterworks.
So it was like a trickle-down dominoes effect.
Yeah.
Everyone was...
It was a disaster.
On the left-hand side of the aisle was just going to town.
Disaster.
And I don't know if it was sweat or tears, but his entire suit was completely soaked through.
It was like 1,000 degrees.
So it might have actually been tears with all the crying.
So in retrospect, was tan a bad idea, or should we have gone with?
No, because anything else would have been so heavy.
Yeah, it was light. Really it was a light suit. But yo, Anders had an undershirt, a button-up shirt, and a suit jacket. And you don't think that there was definitely like wetness coming through the back of the suit jacket?
It was hot.
I think just like your central
Dominican in August in a suit.
Your nervous system has to be just overloaded.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a lot, but it was good. We actually had a breeze on the beach, and yeah, it was cool. We got married.
It was gorgeous. Awesome. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
Well, you definitely were missed. Everyone was not the same atmosphere not having you guys around. But some people noticed, yes, them being back. And this last week, we've started to transition into a new program. You guys can see the testing that's been going on. We only lost a couple people going to ham on the first day.
Yeah. Back squats, 5:30 a.m.
Never a good idea trying to hit rep 20-pound PRs at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, especially when 20 pounds is like
a lot.
12% of your max.
Yeah, you went from 98% to 112%.
Yeah.
But we are starting to implement, and we've talked about this with some of the classes, not only a new training cycle, but a new element into San Diego Athletics, and that is a more official CrossFit program. Would you, Brian, like to elaborate on that a little bit more?
Sure, yeah. So the current structure is with a muscular development program and with a fitness/CrossFit program. We're kind of trying to combine this like health and wellness lifestyle component with CrossFit. And not that they are necessarily mutually exclusive, but the new idea is to separate them a bit more. So we now are going to have 3 different programs where there's one specific CrossFit competition-based program. The first cycle of that is going to be an Olympic lifting and strict gymnastics-based cycle. The focus is going to be to get really strong with a barbell, get really athletic, and build some strict strength through like strict pull-ups, strict toes to bar, strict muscle-ups, strict dips, stuff like that. And then that way, that allows us to kind of tailor the fitness lifestyle class a bit more to some specific goals. And we want every cycle to make sure that we have a goal in some tangible way of demonstrating whether it's working. And so for this cycle, Anders and I discussed, and we kind of came to the conclusion that focusing on single leg and single arm movements with LSITs are kind of going to be the focus of cycle number 1.
Now, why is that beneficial for our gym goers and our athletes to work that unilateral movement, that half of the body, opposed to doing maybe a double arm barbell type of thing?
Yeah, totally. Well, first off, I mean, you can easily look at a barbell and you can see that allows the stronger side to compensate. At the same level, it's almost similar if you're doing a dumbbell movement where they're both moving at the same time. You can still kind of maneuver your body around and let one dominant arm or leg compensate. When you isolate a leg or an arm and you do like a single arm overhead press, a split squat, a single leg RDL, it becomes much more difficult to really allow that opposite side to help take over for you. And Anders actually brought up a great point that I hadn't even thought about. It's so obvious, but there are very, very few sports that actually are played on 2 legs. It's constant movement from side to side, front and back, constant balance and coordination from one leg to the other leg. And this is something that's going to be super applicable to a lot of life activities outside of the gym as well.
And I think you can look at a lot of journal entries or just the way professional high-level athletes train, and they use that unilateral movement, training opposite sides of the bodies to not allow those muscle deficiencies to be overrun with a lot of like barbell movement, as we do in CrossFit. Now, as far as like the class dynamic, how is that going to change now with the 3 programs being implemented at the same time?
Talk about it. Yeah, I think the one thing we've been really lucky to do here is just attract some really high-level coaching, and we're gonna have cool, thank you. And I think the big separator when it comes to are you a good coach or not, like everybody can go and talk about what the body mechanics of a squat are, like awesome. And from there, it's like, okay, I can get one person to squat really well, but can I look at a room of 15 people and pick apart 15 different squats, remember every single person's faults and movement mechanics, and how do I get each of those 15 people moving in the same way? And I think that's something we've been really lucky and worked really hard with the coaches, and Bryan and I ourselves have to work on it all the time as well. As can we just be really good movement coaches and see faults in people, be able to coach from a distance, as well as being able to get in there and really hammer home some of the technique stuff with people. But this idea of being a movement coach, like I can look at 15 different people doing 15 different movements, and the room is able to slow down when you've coached enough and you've been around enough people and athletes and movement that you can look at 15 different people doing 15 different movements and remember each of those little pieces that everyone needs to work on. And I think it's a testament to our coaching staff. I think it's a testament to just the general knowledge that goes on in here, that we're able to kind of have the trust in the coaches, have the trust in the athletes that, we're able to teach a snatch and we're able to teach like one-legged deadlifts all at the same time, have 2 coaches in class, and then have a 3rd program running at the same time. And it's really something that we're proud of, that we've gotten to this point. We gave it a shot with this 2-program structure that's going on, and you guys have crushed it. And on top of that, the coaches have really like adapted to it well. And we want to create this like kind of flow state of the gym where people come in and they understand what they're supposed to do. We may have to teach the nuances of movements, but we're really there to observe you guys working out well and bring your game to the next level every time. But we don't have to be so strict in every tiny little thing that we do.
So with these people coming in on Monday, we talked about it earlier in the coaches meeting. I think we're getting a very common question. It's like, well, what program do I do now? Where should I go if I've been working in the fitness, and should I now try out this CrossFit? Should I go back and forth?
Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts?
I would say that for anybody that's not trying to look at CrossFit as a sport, you don't need to be doing like the CrossFit program. That's more of like, as I kind of initially introduced it, like a competition style CrossFit program. Like this first cycle focusing on banging weights with all the snatching, clean and jerk, front squat, back squat, and all this stuff. It's really a, it's one of the, we talked about it as well. And
right.
the fact that if you're gonna do this to your body on a daily basis, you also need to then prioritize at least a half-hour a day of mobility work and soft tissue work, and making sure that you're spending ample time opening up different areas of the body that are going to be needed to hit these positions properly and not put your joints through too much stress. And for most people that come in here and they work a long day at work and then they come in and they just want to sweat for an hour and feel like they got a workout in and then move on with their day, like these are not the people that need to be doing a fully focused Olympic lifting program. If you're that person that wants to do the Olympic lifting program, then you're also the person that needs to show up a half hour early and leave a half hour late. And suddenly this becomes a 2-hour class that you're here for instead of a 1-hour class. And I honestly would say, like, aside from proficiency in the movements, that's like the number 1 or 2 criteria, is just, do you have the commitment to show up early and stay late to really focus and prioritize the mobility side of this?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that we talked about earlier in our coaches meeting. I have come from that Olympic lifting background, and I don't think a lot of people truly realize how difficult it is to snatch 3 days a week, to do back squat every other day, to be throwing around a lot of heavy weight, and it does require a little bit larger of a commitment. You can't just roll in, 5 minutes late and I'm going to jump in and start warming up. You truly need to get your body going with that. That was something else I would like to talk about, is with the warm-ups. Are we going to still keep going with those warm-ups that we've been doing?
Yeah, I think that there's been, we had Jonathan Pearson here from Fixed Body Group last week, and on multiple occasions talking about how athletic the group was. I think a lot of that stuff comes in through the warm-ups, like just teaching people how to skip and hit the ladder and being more of an athlete. And this, I kind of wanted to jump in a couple times, but I think this kind of hopefully may answer a couple of the questions. But CrossFit, the program that we're going to be run, is very tailored to CrossFit, the sport specific. And I think that sometimes what happens, because barbells and CrossFit go so well together, like a barbell is a great training tool, but because CrossFit's become so popular and it's a phenomenal sport and people get great results from it, and that's why we love it. But it also has turned a little bit more narrow, has much more narrow focus than like general fitness and maybe the original doctrine of CrossFit had. And I think there's missing a lot of just like gymnastics movements, and once this kipping thing got into play and butterfly pull-ups, like you lose sight of a lot of just standard pulling and standard pressing. And the barbell, although it's really hard to be very, very strong, a relative amateur can come in and pick a barbell up, and with any sort of decent athleticism or strength can clean 95 pounds, 135 pounds, whatever it is, and then in the first 6 months it's going to get pretty strong. But you never hear about people like, man, I'm just going to spend the next 6 months really working on like developing my strict muscle up.
And why isn't that? Why don't people?
It's not sexy. It's
That's
really
exactly,
hard.
That's a good point.
It's really difficult. Understanding how your body functions as a unit is much more difficult than, everybody can jump, and once you learn how to jump, then it's about manipulating the barbell around your jump. And everyone can squat. The majority of people don't do it well, but everyone can squat. And I'm actually working on an article, kind of like a small rebuttal to what Hillary Hochauer wrote in the CrossFit Journal recently, but she talked about going on squat cycles. And actually in talking with her before this, it's like, yeah, they're great and you're gonna get really strong right off the bat and it's awesome, but one, you're just practicing squatting over and over again, like many reps, so you're gonna get better at it in the short term. But then, she interviewed AJ Roberts, who squatted 1,200 pounds or something like that. He's like, yeah, you can go and do that for 6, 8, 12 weeks, but you're gonna lose all the gains as soon as you're done. So it's pointless. Like, you're just gonna try and hurt yourself for one Instagram video and then you lose everything. And I think one of the really cool benefits about training outside of the barbell, and trust me, it's taken a very long time for us to get into these things, is the motor patterns that you're creating by being able to do a strict muscle up are significantly more long-term, because you're not manipulating an object outside of your body. You have, in order to do a strict muscle up, you're going to be able to do a strict muscle up forever. Like it's kind of one of those things where you have the strength, you have the understanding of how your body moves in space, and you're able to keep that. Whereas a barbell, it's external, and you're able to put a bunch of weight on there. Whether you're doing it right or wrong, you're going to have some level of success doing it because it's an external object.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so the gymnastic stuff is super cool. What Anders is saying is all right. Like all the handstand stuff, the inverted work, the planches, the front leaning levers, L-sit to handstand, all that stuff, super cool, strict muscle up. But even going into like the single leg and single arm stuff, you don't see a lot of this. And I know you talked about doing a lot of it in your like professional football career days, which is super rad. And that was where you referenced kind of how this is how athletes train. But you don't see it a lot. And I think that part of the problem, or the reason that we don't see it a lot, is because it's really hard.
Yeah.
You're going to take one leg to failure, which essentially feels just as hard as taking a back squat to failure. But then you have to come back and do it again for the other leg. And you're basically doing double the amount of work for the same amount of benefit, sort of. I mean, it can be looked at that way. Like people look at it like, I'll do dumbbell rows and feel like I'm going to die at the end of a set, but then I need to turn around and still find the energy to do a second set for the other arm.
And I think another, like AD said, that it's not sexy. I mean, there's a point when balance comes into play where you're not going to be able to move as much weight. We're doing single leg deadlifts, and I remember watching you the first time, and you were doing 70s, and I said, well, how about we move into this position, and all of a sudden you could do the 70s, and we had to drop back down to like 35, right?
Yeah.
And I think in the
I don't
long
even
run,
touch anything over like the 45s now because I just focus on doing it perfectly.
and getting people into those good positions. Like at the beginning, we talked about, for the first time, I think, in a long time, we had 2 injuries on a Monday.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, that might not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but for us, that is. Because I mean, that's, I think, our number one job is to make sure people don't hurt themselves. And then number 2, progress their fitness. And I feel like that is what the fitness program has been really doing well.
This is another thing that comes back to what Bryan was talking about earlier. Like, are you going to put in that 20, 30 minutes before and after class? Like, you need to understand that this was the first time in 6 months that we've tested and wrote the word test on the board. Like, everyone's getting stronger. We can see this. Everyone's reaching their goals. They're healthier. They're doing great. And then we write test on the board one time in 6 months, and boom, brains explode. And when you're doing the CrossFit thing and you're adding that intensity every day, you're testing. And we need to, and it's our job, and it's your job as an athlete to understand where you're at, but having that understanding of training versus testing, and when testing happens, we're just a little bit more mentally focused than the training. It's not, let's go lose our minds. Like, the people that did it at 5:30 in the morning, they did nothing wrong outside of overextend themselves a little bit too early in the morning. These people have been with us for a long time. They know how to move. They're great athletes. But as soon as you start testing, the brain pushes a little bit further than the body. You want to believe a little bit more than you should, and things get weird.
And I think something that the members should know and our athletes should know is that staying with the fitness program doesn't mean that you guys are going to stop doing Olympic movements. We talked about that earlier today. That you guys will still have that element within your training cycle, right?
Yeah, for sure. It'll just be not the entire focus like it is for the CrossFit cycle. And then the other thing is that a couple people have mentioned too is like, are there still going to be strength training? Is there still going to be conditioning? Like, I've had questions from that from 2 different people. Like, are we still going to strength train? Yes, of course. That's the basis of the program. We're going to strength train. Are we going to condition? Yes, of course we're going to condition. It may not be like 100 kipping pull-ups for time, or like it might not be like 30 muscle-ups for time and kipping handstand push-ups till your shoulders fall off, but there will be 100% conditioning elements in there, and you will still leave feeling like you got just as good of a workout. Your joints just might feel a little bit better.
Probably like they have for the last 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, I think we joke about it, but when I did the 2 months of just the bodybuilding and jumping into a class once a week, I felt so much better. I was running up and down stairs, my knees did hurt, and then I started getting back into the competitive part of it, which is what I want to do. But the wear on your body, and I don't think we're trying to downsell the CrossFit program.
No.
I think we're just simply stating as a fact, and you can talk to any high-level CrossFit athlete, and I think they would tell you the exact same thing. It's going to take a bit more of a commitment coming in, and like they talked about, warming up, working on things you need to, cooling down, maybe spending a little bit more time outside the gym, whether it's with massage therapists, acupuncture, chiropractic, working on things that might be ailing you. Something else that we talked about that we're going to have new is a new look to the website, correct?
Ooh, yeah, website. I wish I could tell you an exact date, but Greg Pitts is going to be getting his romance game on in Catalina this weekend. So if he doesn't drink all the red wine, possibly next week. If it's not up by next week, either him or I have completely dropped the ball. But yeah, we're going to try and make it a little bit easier for everybody to see. We've kind of just seeing where everybody's been, what gets used on the website, how you guys navigate through it, kind of making it a little bit easier from the homepage so that all of the articles and education is separate from the gym information. When people want to go and check out just the gym information, awesome. Another thing that we're adding that we're really excited about is just a programming section to the website. So while we're going through this, people can follow every single day, pick a program. That's what's going to be going on in the gym. And then once we are finished with each of these cycles, we'll be able to take the programs, put them on there so we can archive the programs. People can go online and download them. If you have a friend that you would love to send our L-sit to handstand, push-up, muscle-up program thing, whatever it is.
You named him.
That's official. L-sit to handstand muscle-up progression program thing.
Yeah, you can do that. Email your friend and they'll be superheroes. But yeah, all of these things I think are huge improvements. Just now that we have such a rad staff, we're able to focus on a lot of the kind of things that add to the experience. And I think going back through and downloading programming cycles is going to be really cool. I think it's going to be a fun way for everybody to kind of interact, send some stuff off to friends, get people motivated to kind of start moving in a really easy way.
Yeah, I dig it.
Also, guys, if you have any questions right now is the time to shoot those up.
Just hit the little heart thing. I don't even know what that does.
I don't know. It's cool though.
I think it means they like
No one's
us.
even watching. It's cool. It's perfect.
If for those of you that might be still tuning in, I just want to still elaborate on the fact that both the fitness program and the muscle development program are going to still line up, correct?
Yeah, the muscular development and the fitness program will still line up, and the CrossFit Olympic lifting program will be separate, not correlated, but you should still be able to jump back and forth between the other two programs as you currently can as well.
Absolutely. So not too much change for you guys. We don't want you to lose your minds.
So you really shouldn't just go from like a super heavy Olympic lifting cycle and then jump into some other stuff.
And if anyone sees this video after it's reposted and stuff like that, if you guys have questions, you can always email at admin San Diego Athletics or info at San Diego Athletics for any type of program that we might be running at the time or changes.
For sure.
Like that. Was that it? Nothing?
CrossFit team.
Little heart
Thanks for
thing.
hanging out, guys.
Little heart thing. I don't even know this.